Hi, and welcome to this episode of I've Got This Kid. I'm your host, Dr. Cherina Williams, licensed speech and language pathologist, homeschooling mom of two, wife of one, here to share everything speech, language, play, development, homeschooling, and now an added bonus, parent education, and all the other stuff that falls in between. It has been a long time, and I am so glad to be back with you all, sharing some stuff that I've learned along the way. But I cannot go on without giving a big shout out to my RMU community. You know who you are. You got me through my doctorate program. Yes, it is now Dr. Dr. Ken, Dr. Sandy, Dr. Kelly. I couldn't have done it without you guys. And so let me tell you, you guys are rock stars to me, and you guys made hard work fun. It was worth it. And I would do it all over again with you guys. Late meetings, lots of late meetings, lots of coffee, lots of writing, lots of edits. Do I really want to do that again? Well, I want to do it again, but I don't have to do it again. So thank you guys. I couldn't have done it without you guys. And, you know, I've got to say that I missed you all, but the time away gave me so much to think about, so much to research, so much to wrap my head around when thinking about parent education, when thinking about service providing, when thinking about how to best provide tools, not only to you parents out there, my world changers, but also, honestly, the people like me on the other end of the stick, right? The SLPs, the clinicians, the ones who are doing the hard work day in and day out to really consider, how do we bridge these gaps and make things amazing for all parties involved? And so that's what we'll be playing with a lot. And I hope you guys enjoy. But without further ado, let's get right into things because, you know, I'll monologue forever. I wanted to start the season off right, talking about how to choose the best SLP for you and your families. This is something that doesn't get talked about a whole lot for a bunch of different reasons. But we'll get into those reasons before I jump the gun. But we really want to look at finding tools that support you, your family. You notice I'm saying you as the world changer, your little sugar who needs the support, and the other supporting cast who is around you going day in and day out to close these gaps. But I want to be sure to preface that if you already have an SLP that you're working with, it still doesn't hurt to think about, are you doing these things that I'm going to talk about today? And if not, what are some things that you can do to make the most of your partnership? So my first question that you should ask yourself is, what are my child's specific needs? What is my sugar's needs? Is it, I want them to talk more because I notice that they're not talking? Do I want them to follow directions because it seems like when I'm talking to them, they're not really understanding me? Do I want to build social skills to where we can play together and be together and we can bond together and we enjoy that time together? Or is it, I want my sugar to use language over behavior? And that's a doozy right there. If sugar is using behavior over language, one, you got to a lot of times figure out if it's the behavior talking or if it's the behavior being used as language talking. But those are some important things that you really want to know, because without knowing what it is that you're looking for, then chances are you might have some goals or some things identified that aren't necessarily tailored to what you would want and what you would need. And it doesn't mean that it's not important. It just means that there might be some other things that you're noticing that may take precedence over what's being addressed. And that does happen from time to time. And so again, you really want to know what your child's needs are. And then honestly, after you determine what your child's needs are, then you want to look at yourself, world changer. You fit into this. What are your needs? What do you need to feel successful? What do you need to feel educated? about your child's development? What do you need to know about the gaps? What do you need to know beyond the diagnosis? If you are newly learning about the diagnosis, is it just they're telling you that your child is behind, but you're not necessarily understanding? Remember, speech and language pathology is like an umbrella, and so many areas and little things go into that. So what is it that you need to make sure that within this journey, you are able to advocate and be a part of that? Another biggie is, as you're thinking about partnering with an SLP, you really want to consider time, location, your schedule, your work demands, because this is probably not your only thing that you're doing. Do you want to meet virtually because you don't necessarily want somebody in your house? Do you want to meet in the public because you'd feel more comfortable applying some of the social skills stuff or play-based stuff? And it's kind of hard to apply social skills inside of a clinic, and really get natural play. And so for things like that, maybe outside would be a better option than inside during play groups or different activities that you have your sugar in. Does the SLP work after hours, after your work hours? Because that's important too, to where you're able to be a part of therapy. And if you're not able to be a part of therapy, is it built in your contract with your therapist that you guys are meeting after sessions, or you're exchanging in emails, or you're dialoguing? Because you are really important in this, because at the end of the day, if you find the perfect SLP, but you can't come up with a good time and location, then it's kind of not that perfect, right? And then again, reemphasizing that you need to know what you need. So do you need a refresher on how to play? And I don't mean like play with just like crashing and banging toys together or doing things together, but how to make the things that you're working on come alive during your independent time with your little sugar. Do you need some tips on how to connect? If your sugar is hyperlexic and they kind of prefer like pointing out words and letters, how do you connect on that level? If your sugar kind of likes to play alone by themselves and maybe there's a diagnosis of autism, how do you connect without overwhelming them? How do you connect without overstimulating them, right? And so you want to think about what your needs are to be able to support, so you're not shutting down and feeling like you're not helpful or you're feeling rejected, because you don't want to feel that way throughout this process. You want to really feel like you're part of the team, but you also want to feel like you are being able to contribute in the best way you know how. And let me be 100% clear. Contributing doesn't mean you're spending hours and hours and hours a day. I am still a firm believer in 5 to 7 minutes of structured, like, and not structured like you're controlling everything, but like, you know what you're working on during that time and what you're trying to get out of your sugar and what you might even be trying to get out of yourself during that time. And so taking just a few minutes and applying some steps to work with your sugar. Another thing that you might need, and we don't talk about this one often enough at all, it's starting to come around, but let's say we don't have a great prescription that's mainstream at this point. That would be providing emotional support. And this is for my SLPs out there. It is hard having 30 people on your caseload and meeting 30 different families' needs. Not only is our backgrounds different, our thought processes are different. Our mindsets are different. Like the way that we see the same thing is going to be perceived different. And so we have to really be great listeners to our parents to understand where they're coming from and what they're feeling about things, which is why we now have dedicated CPT codes for providing parent education, because the thought leaders understood that, hey, we need to make sure that our parents are getting the things that they need in order to be successful. And that's where our clinical counseling kicks in, to where we really can't take what we think we know and put our thoughts and our ideas on families, but we really have to make sure that we are supporting wherever they are, whether it is denial, because denial happens. Like this is, those 7 stages that people go through when they are dealing with difficulties or challenges or changes. Is it that they feel let down because the expectations that they had are not what they think it may be? Are they feeling rejected by their child? However it is that they're feeling, are they feeling stressed out? Are they feeling dissatisfied with the parenting process because maybe the child is not responding as much? If we're able to provide that emotional support and understand where they are and provide them what they need, then chances are they're going to become a lot happier in the therapeutic process and become more willing to engage and learn and advocate if they're being heard as well. So world changers, just know like your voice matters just as much as the professional voice, because you at the end of the day have to live with your sugar. And so you should be well versed and well knowledge. But that does also mean on the flip end that you're going to have to accept another person's perspective, which can sometimes be difficult because as much as you know your child, as much as you know them, you know your sugar, somebody else is looking from a much different lens than you are, and they're able to see both of you guys and like strategies that can help you guys move along, right? And so that leads us to the third question. Is this therapist then a fit for my family? After you've measured your sugar's needs, after you've measured your needs, now you really want to know, does this therapist work for me? Is this clinician a rock star for me? Are they going to work for our things? And so there are some hard truths that we have to kind of tackle. And hard truth number one is that here in these good old United States, SLPs are in short supply. Yes, we are. And so if you have one and you are listening, consider yourself lucky, because there's not a lot of us running around. And that's the truth. The second question is, this works better when you're looking for a new therapist. It doesn't mean that you can't bring up you and your sugar's needs to your existing therapist, but, it works a little better in this case. You might need to ask for education if things haven't been explained. You see how I keep pausing? Because this one is hard, because I'm asking you to pull an audible on your therapist, especially if you've been working with them for a while. If you're not getting education, I would strongly suggest that you just kind of say, hey, I want to know more information about, because I've thought about it. I've thought about things and I may want to change some things. Can you support me? But be specific about what you want, because we're not mind readers, but we will support you the best way that we know how. And a really good therapist, if they don't have the answer, is going to say, hey, look, I don't know right now, but I'm going to find out. And as soon as I find out, I'm going to get back to you, right? And so for the ones who are looking for an SLP, if you are a parent and you're listening to this and you're like, I need to find myself an SLP, this is what you should be asking and thinking about. What is the therapist's treatment approach? Why do you want to know that? Because you want to know like what they're doing, and if your method of learning, your method of learning needs to mesh with what they're doing. And not only that, your sugar's method of learning needs to mesh with what they're doing, unless the caveat is, unless your sugar is learning a skill they don't have. That is the caveat. If your sugar is not used to sitting down and that therapist needs them to sit down to get through an activity, then that is a new skill. But if they are doing flashcards or something like that, and your sugar is not gelling with flashcards, then that's what I mean by that. You want to know if they use more of a play-based approach. Do they like to use toys to meet goals? Do they like to have things more structured? That means like, I'm sitting at this table, we're doing this very specific thing together. They probably have something where they're taking some notes. Are they using more of a drill-based approach? Sometimes therapists are bringing technology into sessions now. Or are they coming to the classroom and trying to apply the stuff that they've learned? So there's a lot of different things that you can ask yourself, but most important of that is, are you allowed to be in those sessions? And can you ask questions during those sessions to get clarification? Because again, you need to know what's going on. You need to understand what's going on so you can try this stuff at home in a way that makes sense to you. And so knowing how the SLP works will help determine whether or not they're fit for your family. And if that is the direction that you need to go in for your sugar. But sometimes you'd be surprised. You might think like, hey, this SLP, I don't really know what's going on here. Maybe not for me. But then you might be surprised. I've had a lot of people be like, what are you doing? And then by the second or third session, they're like, oh my gosh, I am so glad you did. So again, just knowing and having somebody explain everything to you along the way makes it a lot easier and gives you a lot more assurance and trust and confidence in who you're working with. And my final question, who is paying for this? Who's paying for this? Are you paying for this? Is your insurance paying for this? Is the school district paying for this? Who's paying for this? Yes. Who's paying for this? Yes. We're just, hey, look, SLPs can be costly depending on where you are. I am in the San Francisco Bay Area. Everything is pricey. Keep in mind that your SLP might not be the only services that you're paying for. Even if you have copays, like keep in mind, if you're spending $20 per copay, keep in mind, if you're paying $20 for each copay, and you have 3 different providers, that's still $60 extra a week. Make sure that you know how much this is going to cost you. Make sure that it is a fit for your budget. This is like having another bill. Make sure that you know the number of sessions that you're paying for in advance. That will help you determine how this is going. If you are not paying for it, please take advantage of those services. Please, this isn't even in my notes, but if you are not paying for services and you are getting them for free, please know that speech pathologists are not cheap. Please make it to your service, your scheduled services. Make it to your appointment. Reschedule when necessary, because there are people out there who do not have the luxury of having speech pathology for free. And so if you are getting it for free, please, 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 please make the most of it. But there are 3 different ways that SLP expenses can be covered. The first is that your insurance pays. Now, when your insurance pays, that means that they are either covering the whole cost or part of the cost. Reach out to them, though, and make sure that they're covering something, because they might say, hey, we cover speech, but that might be for somebody who's had a stroke or who has aphasia or something where it's congenital. And what I mean by congenital, when the baby is in the womb, the diagnosis is already there. They're already aware. Think Down syndrome. That is something that we already know before the baby comes out, as long as that 4th month testing is taking place. Keep in mind, if you go out of network, your insurance might cover a portion of it, but then you might have to pay a bigger copay. And what I mean by out of network is your insurance will have a list of SLPs that they are willing to cover up to however much percent. But if there is an SLP who is not on that network, they might want you to foot a little bit more of the bill. If that is the case, you can still use that SLP, and maybe on the back end, if the SLP is willing to work with the insurance, maybe become a provider on that list. So then you're paying the copay amount. It can happen. I've seen it happen. The second way is paying out of pocket. Paying out of pocket is basically what it is. Like, you choose your SLP, you're not using your insurance, you're not using a family savings account or a health savings account. You're simply using your hard-earned money to pay for practice. And if you are able to do that, then cheers for you, because then you can pick exactly who you want and you don't have to go through the insurance hurdles and really think about, like, is this person in my network? Can I be reimbursed for this? Or how is this going to play out? You just pay and you go. Now, In some cases, some SLP clinics might ask you to pay upfront more, or they might charge your account because if you cancel last minute, if you no show, if you do something to where you're just not making up for the session, like if your money gets funny, you're like, I can't pay for this. Well, remember, these are people with families and kids, and they're like, hey, we have to make so much to pay our employees and to keep the lights on. And so they're going to probably obligate you a little bit more than what would happen with your insurance, because with your insurance, a lot of times if you no show or there's a cancellation fee to where you can charge your insurance for that. With private pay, the SLP clinic is putting their trust in you and trusting that you are going to fulfill your obligation. But sometimes us people be people. And so got to protect ourselves. The final way to pay is either through HSA or FSA. Those abbreviations, if you're not familiar, is a health savings account and a family or flexible spending account. And different employers have different names for it, but it just simply means that every paycheck that you get, a percentage comes out, and that percentage gets put aside for you to put the money where you want to put it. Some people use it for services. Some people use it for doctor's appointments. Speech pathology falls under doctor's appointment. And so you're able to get reimbursed for the money that you spend out. Now, this is how you can choose your own therapist if you want. You can use a speech therapist that's out of network. And even with them being out of network, you can use the flexible spending account to pay for the service fee or the higher copay or whatever it is. So you can basically tell your money where you want it to go. And the clinic, the SLP, just needs to provide the paperwork that, yes, I've seen you. These are the clinic codes. This is what I did with this family. And bada boom, bada bing, you get your money back. Some families get reimbursed. Some families have credit cards with their money on there and they can use them that way. And so it just depends, but it's a great way to use pre-tax dollars in a way that makes sense for you and your family. So in the end, world changers, finding the perfect therapist really just means taking the time to consider what your sugar, what you as the world changer needs, and not only what you guys need, but what's a fit for you guys and how to pay for these services. It's crucial because once it's already enough to know that like there's some gaps in development, and a lot of times you're still wrapping your head around that. And so just to make the process a little bit easier, go in kind of thinking about and having on the front of your mind what you want and what you think you want in order to maximize the partnership with your clinician. I guarantee it's totally worth it. Also, I know you don't know what I know as a therapist. I don't expect you to know what I know as a therapist. However, one of the main reasons I took time away from this podcast was to start creating evidence-based materials that are a fit for world changers like you and clinicians like me who need something that is evidence-based, standardized, makes sense, and that's accessible, easy to access. So if you are looking to step up your parent knowledge, let me tell you, I've got a parent education program that can be found at I'veGotThisKid.com. It's called Home Goals Parent Education Program, Learning Milestone Movements. More programs will also come out, but it's going to tool you up for everything that you need to know about language delays, behaviors that come with language, and strategies that you can use as soon as you're done listening to the program. And not only that, it's virtual. You can listen to it on the go. There's curriculum with it. And so it's a win-win for you because you can rewind and fast forward and do whatever you like, however you like. And you can take the information with you and discuss it more with your therapist if you are working with a therapist. So I encourage you to take this journey and take this step to get as educated as you can about your child and all that comes along with it. And yes, you can be reimbursed through your HSA or FSA account. World changers, if you have any questions, do not hesitate to reach out to me. My email hasn't changed. It's at questions@I'veGotThisKid.com. Isn't that a tongue twister? It's at questions@. Show notes and transcripts will be available for you right below. You can also find me on social media. I am on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. There is also a YouTube channel. Check all of that stuff out below. All right? Become my friend. Ask me questions. Join the community. Learn amazing tips along the way. Join me, World Changers, in 2 weeks. Yes, not 1, but 2 weeks, okay? Where my next episode, we're going to be talking about parent egg. I know it sounds like a lullaby. It won't be a lullaby. I promise it won't be a lullaby at all. I can't wait to see you guys there. It's fun to be back. I'm glad to be back. World Changers, until the next time, take care.